Yo, what's up, folks? We got another great one. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Empire. We'd like to engage with everyone from pastors to actors, rappers to trappers, and everybody in between. And guess what? We have another amazing guest for today. But before we get into it, y'all should know the deal if you don't know it yet. Like the video, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build this up. We're really doing great things with great people, having interesting interviews with interesting people. And it's just been so great. If you want to support and contribute to this work, you can do our Cash App, which is $THEE Empire Podcast. We have Venmo, PayPal, which is all the link in the description and all that jazz. But other than that, let's get into our guest, who is known for being what we know now on social media in the world is the man who's saying he's turning plastic into fuel, which is called pyrolysis. And I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know anything about it, but we're going to let the gentleman talk on about it, whose name is Julian Brown. And Julian, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, so great to have you, man. And how's your day been, bro?
My day has been extravagant. Oh, I'm always grateful.
Gotcha. Extravagant. What's your day been like today so far?
Well, it's definitely been a productive day. I do as much as I can in every day to get closer to my goals.
Gotcha. What was your goal for today?
Well, my goal for today was to start to get my things on the back end ready. I'm doing several things. For example, I am writing a book on my story and my process of pyrolysis, and all these types of things have background things that nobody really sees that are necessary to be set in place. So I got to achieve some of those goals today. So it's been a great day.
Beautiful. You know what's so interesting is that people only see what's up front. They really don't know like all the back behind the scenes work that really goes on to make a vision happen.
Right.
You know?
That's what I strive to do every day. Of course, people may only see what's up front, but maybe what's up front is only what the people need to see, right? Perhaps that's how it is.
True. It's only what they're supposed to see, right? Or either what they're supposed to see or they want to see type of thing, right?
Right.
Gotcha. Well, Julian, for people who may not know who you are and what you do, can you please tell all of us who you are and the things that you do?
Well, my name is Julian Brown, and I am a young innovator. I have, at the age of 18, created a pyrolysis reactor in my backyard, which is a device that turns plastic waste into fuel. And then at the age of 19, I began innovating in that field and started to utilize microwaves. And utilizing microwaves is an innovation in this technology because there has yet to have been created an industrial level continuous microwave pyrolysis reactor. In short, there's not a reactor that operates off of microwaves at a big scale that handles our plastic waste. Hence why we have all our plastic waste issues. But what is a pyrolysis reactor? Well, that is a device that takes plastic waste or any organic matter waste for that matter, takes it in, and through heat, without oxygen being present, it actually breaks apart whatever's in there and breaks it back down to its original chemical constituents. And plastic waste comes from crude oil, so it breaks the plastic waste back down to crude oil. And as you may know, our fuels of this world are rooted in crude oil. So we're able to turn plastic into fuel.
I love that, man. It's so cool. And how excited were you? I'm going to ask you again, but how excited were you when you were able to make your first, discovery with like the Mach 1 and stuff like that?
It was very exciting, and I'll tell you why it was so exciting. Because being in society, we have always been told about the plastic waste problem. And in fact, it sometimes is even blamed on us as the consumers, even though we do our part to recycle and they just throw it in the ocean anyway on the back end, right?
Yeah.
But it's always been a problem thing, right? there have never been many solutions offered. Of course, we have the ocean cleanups, but there's never been many solutions based on like, okay, what can you do as an individual? Because you can't avoid using plastic no matter what you do. You buy things, you order things that come in plastic. And you know, if you recycle it, it might end up in the ocean. If you burn it, that's not good. If you throw it in the trash, it's just in the landfill. Like, what can you really do? So when I found instructions online on how to make one of these reactors, and I put together the first one ever that I made, and I found out that it worked, and it wasn't just some internet magic thing. Like plastic literally can be turned back into fuel in your own backyard. It
Yeah.
was so exciting because now I knew, okay, now there is this huge problem, but I, as an individual, can literally contribute to the solution.
Mm. And I think that's like forward thinking, because a lot of people, they're like, they complain about a problem, but they never want to look for a solution for a problem or create a solution. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's unfortunately a huge part of the world we live in currently. And I feel like a lot of that is because of mental limitations put on people. We've always been told in society, for example, if you want to do certain things, you need certain certificates or degrees to do certain things, right? So even though there's so many people who agree and are passionate, deeply passionate about problems like plastic in the oceans, we limit ourselves mentally in terms of what we can do about it, because we might think, oh, we don't have this resource, we don't have this backing, we don't have this degree, this amount of money, so we don't even try. Well, when you compare how the world was back then, the world was a lot more innovative in terms of people were just, they saw a problem, and your average Joe in his garage would start to just come up with a solution. We came up with some of the best things that way, like Velcro, for example, right, in somebody's garage. So I think that's a huge part of it. We need to start to see, okay, yes, we have problems, but you also have to think, just because big industries with tons of money haven't devised a solution doesn't mean that it's not possible for you. Maybe they haven't devised a profitable way to do it or a proper way, and you could be the one to do that.
Very true. And it's interesting that you mentioned about like people think they need degrees, because it made me think about in the early, I guess, the late 1800s, basically more Black Americans had more inventions back then than they do currently today. And they had less
Exactly.
access.
Exactly. And that goes back to the mental limitations, because if you are told your whole life that you need a degree or you need some type of thing outside of you to truly pull the inner creativity from within you out, then of course, even in the midst of having truly everything you need to start innovating and putting things together, you won't, because you're going to think, I need this thing first to even get started, when that's not true. And that has never been the case for pretty much all of the great inventors before us. They just started. Maybe a lot of them may have had degrees and stuff, but that didn't really play in a role of the inner creativity that was always within them.
Yeah. I also like to believe that, and maybe you can also agree, that when you have like this burning thing inside of you, it's like, you know what? I just have to get this thing out. I have to create it. It needs to be done. Otherwise, I'm not completed. I feel like that's kind of how true innovators and true creators make themselves in this world. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. A large part of being able to create something, to innovate or invent something, and really be about it, is you, unfortunately and fortunately, have to be obsessed with it. You have to be obsessed with the mission and with completing the mission, because the amount of setbacks you have, the amount of money and energy you put into it is completely irrational. Anybody around you in your life is going to tell you, you need to calm down, you need to chill out. But that fire in you is burning, and you get so obsessed with seeing it work and your mission and your purpose, and you make it, a part of your purpose to work on this thing, and it happens. There's no way that you can sit there and day after day after day work hard on it over and over again with all the ambition and it not get somewhere.
So true. And I agree. And, Julian, can you give us all like a brief, as brief as you can, a brief story, origin story of, how you grew up, where you grew up to the young man that you are today?
Sure. So I'm originally from Tennessee, and my whole life I always been into building things. I always liked Lego blocks, all just any type of arts and crafts. Building things with my physical hands has always been my thing. And I've also always known that I I believe in justice, and I've always been a part of environmental awareness when it comes to how we do things. Not very necessarily so environmental to the point where you may classify somebody as like a tree hugger, but more environmental in terms of the sense of like, okay, if we are creating things and we are dumping chemicals in our rivers, why are we doing that? You know, we need to have a respect for this great natural environment. That's always been very intrinsic in me, just as much as building things has, because like I said, I believe in justice, and I believe that's an injustice to all living things, the way how we have been doing things and polluting our own living space and living planet, right? So with those two things combined, going up to around the age of, I was 17, well, 16 actually, sophomore year of high school. And well, my parents always backed me with my building with my hands, right? When I wanted to have Legos, they buy me Legos. When I wanted to be in like robotics class, they put me in robotics class. So when I was in high school, I kind of got lost because I was no longer doing things physically because it was just school. And other than that, it was, I wasn't doing much. So I was kind of lost. And then this welding program came up, and my mom said, you know what, you should join the welding program because you're going to be able to learn how to build with your hands and spend half the day at high school and half the day there. I didn't know what welding was, but I said, okay, I'll join, whatever. And I did some research, and I found out that welding is when you learn how to build with metal. And I'm like, okay, well, I've been building with Lego blocks my whole life. That's cool. But being able to build in the actual real world, something like things that are actually mechanically functional through welding, that's like the next step. Those are like adult Legos. So got into welding class, and that's what really opened the door up to getting to this innovation here. Because being a welder, when I kind of going back to what I was talking about before, mental limitations, right? When I started to do research on the process of pyrolysis and how I could recycle at home myself, because what got me there was seeing an article that said in 2020 there are 3.4 billion masks thrown in the ocean, and I was just like, that's just insane. Like, that's crazy, because I read that article in 2020, and it said in 2020, the same year I was reading it, there were 3.4 billion masks in the ocean. So I said, I have to figure out some way I can do this myself here at home, because clearly when we put stuff in the recycle bin or in the trash can, it probably ends up in the ocean, right? So when I started to research that solution, I found the process of pyrolysis. I found articles that already existed online and even little DIY guides on how to make a regular basic pyrolysis reactor, but almost all of them require some type of metal and welding. And I didn't even have a limitation in my mind for a second because I already knew how to weld. So I was just like, okay, that's how you build it. That's pretty simple. Let me just get some pieces of metal, weld them together, make my first reactor. And that's what he did. And that was the start of it. So you can see the same attributes in me start when I was younger, right? The natural intrinsic ability to want to build with my hands, as well as my natural drive for justice, for humanity and Earth. Those were the same things that inspired me later in my life to get me to the point where I started to research and build my first reactor.
Wow, and super awesome and amazing. And how supportive were your parents? Because I'm just going to assume that you were probably building this equipment in their backyard and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Okay. So parents are supportive in a few ways, right? On one side, they're supportive in like, oh, we love what you're doing, great job. But they're also supportive in telling you, you might blow yourself up. So when I first introduced the idea to them and I said, I want to build a plastic to fuel reactor in the backyard, they were like, first of all, they're like, that's not even real, for one. You can't even do that. And I showed them the science. I showed them a little diagram I made, and I said, okay, so you're going to make this. What are you going to do with the fuel? How will we know it's going to be safe? How do we know it's not going to blow up? All these questions. So the first reactor I ever built, I couldn't even build in my parents' backyard. I had to build it in some family land in the far countryside because they wanted to make sure it wasn't going to blow up. And the next one, and when they did see that I was able to construct it relatively safely and such, they then started letting me construct it in the backyard, and that did really help because the family land was 3 hours away. Things really started to go slow working on it, having to go 3 hours to and from every time I wanted to test to run the thing. So my parents, they've always been supportive of me. Like I said, they were the reason. My mom was the one who inspired me to get into welding class, right? And of course, they love that I'm doing something, but they also, of course, being parents, want to always make sure I'm safe. And when you're making things that make fuel that can explode and catch on fire and you could be electrocuted. As a parent, you have to, let's be honest, that's pretty scary no matter how you put it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so awesome. I think it's so important to have supportive parents and supportive people around us. It just helps, keep the mind in the right place and the spirit in the right place, knowing that people support and believe in your work. And, Julian, we've been talking a lot about, the pyrolysis. So I just want to show them a quick clip, and I believe it's of Mach 4. And can you explain a little bit of what's going on here and stuff like that? So I'm just going to show a little clip and just let us know if you can explain a little bit what's going on.
So what's going on in this clip here is this is one of my first test runs of one after I built my Mark IV reactor. And what happens is once we put the plastic in there and we turn the microwaves on, shortly after the microwaves turn on, the plastic starts to immediately break down, right? But there's very few visual ways to know the plastic is breaking down because it's solid metal and steel, right? But the best way to know that the plastic is breaking down is we turn the plastic back into crude oil, like I said before, and a part of crude oil, it becomes a crude oil vapor, right? And that vapor can then be condensed to form our liquids, but there's some vapors that never condense, and those vapors end up being natural gas. So the end of the output of the machine, when it's turned on and the plastic is breaking down, is actually pretty much natural gas coming out. So I light the end of it because it's invisible. And if a flame starts and it sustains itself, that means natural gas is coming out. The plastic is being broken down. So that's what you see here in this clip.
Awesome. So basically it's proof in the pudding, basically, that everything's working.
Yeah, right. Now my next reactor I'm building, I'm going to actually have some sight glasses in the pipes. So you guys should be able to literally see the liquids forming. It'll be really cool.
Nice. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of explained it a little bit right now, but can you dummy explain it dummy explain it real quick about the process of how, pyrolysis happens with your microwaves?
Sure. So in pyrolysis, microwave pyrolysis, well, I'll say this to begin with. So what is the difference between pyrolysis and microwave pyrolysis? Microwave pyrolysis utilizes microwaves. Traditional pyrolysis, or just regular pyrolysis, utilizes a flame. So how does pyrolysis work? We take a container that's airtight, meaning no air is able to get into this container. We load the plastic in. We have to then apply heat to the container to heat up the plastic. Traditional pyrolysis applies heat through a flame. So you burn wood or a natural gas or propane under it, and then it heats up the container. But let's think about it. In order to do that, the flame has to go from the actual source of the fire through the air to the bottom of the container. Then it has to conduct to the inside of the container, from the inside of the container to the plastic, and then the plastic then has to conduct that heat to the rest of the plastic inside. There's so many heat transfers in that alone that you're going to lose a ton of your energy and a lot of time. Microwave pyrolysis differs. It's just like this. Hot pocket in your oven takes 15-20 minutes. Hot pocket in your microwave oven, less than 5 minutes. Why? Because microwaves operate off of what we call volumetric heating. That is when you heat from the inside out rather than the outside in. So incorporating microwaves into pyrolysis, using microwaves to heat up the plastic, we don't even have to heat up the container anymore or the air. We don't have to burn anything anymore. We literally can just turn the microwaves on. They heat up the plastic directly, go right to where you want it to heat. And that vastly boosts the efficiency, how quick it happens, how much energy it takes to do the process. So I originally started building regular pyrolysis machines, but I moved to microwaves because I knew that in order for this to be at a scale that we can use in the world, it needs to be efficient. And the best way to do that was microwaves. So going off of that point, microwave pyrolysis, same thing, airtight container, microwaves come in, plastics in, microwaves hit the plastic. The plastic cannot burn because there's no oxygen. Without oxygen, a fire cannot start. Without a fire, there's no smoke, something does not burn. So instead of it burning, the microwaves heat it up and it turns into a liquid. That liquid is then broken through a permanent chemical change under heat again into a vapor. When that plastic is now vapor, it is no longer plastic. It is returned into crude oil because the molecular chains that made it plastic, the long chains, have been split apart by heat to form vapor. So now that vapor is crude oil vapor. Okay? So that vapor is warm and hot. It needs to be returned to liquid through condensation. What is condensation? Condensation is when you cool down a vapor and turn it into a liquid. It's exactly what water does as clouds. So water starts as water. The sun heats it up, steam goes up, clouds rain, we get the water come down. We have to do essentially the same thing here. So we turned the plastic into crude oil vapor. Now that crude oil vapor goes through our condenser to then condense the liquids out and get it back into the liquid form of crude oil. Okay. And after that point, now when we cool it down, it's no longer plastic again, like I said. So when it cools down, it's not turning this vapor back into solid plastic. It's now turning it back into liquid crude oil, because when it becomes that vapor, it's a permanent chemical change. No plastics exist. That vapor can only exist through the absolute chemical and physical destruction of the plastic's hydrocarbon bonds. So that is also why when we make these fuels, there are no microplastics, there are no plastics in these fuels, because the fuels can only exist through the plastic's complete destruction. But there's some vapors that never condense. They never turn into liquid. There's some vapors that stay vapors forever. Since those vapors are crude oil vapors, once again, well, guess what one of the byproducts of crude oil is? Propane, natural gas, flammable gases, pretty much fuel gases, gaseous products. We collect those gaseous products because those gaseous products are fuels. So we collect the oils, we collect the gaseous products, but what's left of the plastic in the machine? Well, all that's left of the plastic in the machine is pure carbon and minerals. And the reason why is because anything organic in there, anything that has organic molecules, right, that can be broken apart by heat, they all get destroyed because the heat is too much for anything organic to remain intact. So all those become the fuels, and we have solid carbon in the end that comes out at the end of the plastic. That carbon can be used as biochar, can be used as pigment, road filler, can be put in cement. It has tons of uses. So going through all that I just said, if you noticed, I didn't mention any emissions or waste. And that's because there are no emissions of this machine, because every single product that we get, we don't want to emit because it's useful. Our fuels, our gaseous fuels, our carbon, all of those things have monetary value. The byproducts, the waste products of this machine are literally the fuels.
Awesome. And basically, the way you've pioneered in this pyrolysis industry is by you using microwaves instead of direct heat, correct?
Right.
Congratulations on that concept and idea and vision.
And I will make this clear. I was not the first to use microwaves. There are a ton of research papers on microwave pyrolysis. However, studying microwave pyrolysis, I learned the reason why it isn't done, even though it's so much more efficient. And the reason why is it has been extremely difficult to design a machine that uses microwaves, but also can be made continuous and scalable. When I read my research papers on microwave pyrolysis, all of these microwave pyrolysis research papers were done with really small lab scale microwave pyrolysis machines. You know, expensive they make these scientific microwaves called lab microwaves that are specifically designed for experiments like this, and they're expensive, right? But when I wanted to build one myself at home, I didn't have that luxury of getting one of those. I had to build it myself. So in me having to build it myself, I actually, I guess you could say, just accidentally discovered a way how to make it utilize microwaves, but also be scalable and continuous, because I just kept improving my own process, having to figure out how to build it at home. Because when I was looking to build regular pyrolysis, right, I found guides online. I found my first reactor that I designed off of Instructables. But when I dwelled into microwave pyrolysis, when I was looking online, there were literally only research papers with no pictures. So I had to completely design my own microwave pyrolysis reactor from scratch. And in continuing to improve my design and learning how it could be made better, I eventually came up with certain design aspects that allowed it to actually solve the problems that had kept this technology from scaling up like it needed to from the beginning. So ironically, it was my lack of resources that allowed me to come up with the innovation necessary for this whole industry. Because if I had the lab scale equipment and the lab scale microwaves, I may never have out of, I guess you could say, necessity of the survival of my own machine, came up with what was necessary to allow it to be done continuously and scalable.
Wow, it's so crazy how something that may seem like a deterrent is actually the fuel, ironically, the plastic fuel for you to grow. And I commend you for admitting and saying, this isn't, I wasn't the first person to come up with this concept. So I respect you, Julian, very much for saying that, right? And there's a couple of things that I'm probably going to help solidify for people who may not be so savvy. So like when we say crude oil, can we say, for example, it's kind of like orange juice with all the pulp in it before getting like a pulp-free type of orange juice?
I would not say that's the best analogy, and the reason
Okay.
why is because crude oil is a mix of a ton of oils together, a ton of fuel oils together. Crude oil is a mix of gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, motor oil, propane. All of these things in this oil form that need to be refined and distilled to separate all these individual oils out to put in your engine.
Yeah.
So with plastic coming from crude oil, when we turn it back into crude oil, we get all of those fuels back out. But we, just like crude oil needs to be refined to separate them out, we need to refine and separate them out as well. And that's how we're able to make not just gasoline, not just diesel, not just jet fuel from plastic, but actually all three: gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel from the same piece of plastic.
Got you. That's kind of what I meant with the orange juice, how it has a bunch of pulp, but then you can separate the pulp from it and get like pulp-free or different types. So I guess we're on the same page. I just didn't describe it as well as I wanted to. And so you can make jet fuel, correct, with this if you wanted to?
You can, and we have made jet fuel.
Gotcha. And you made gasoline as well, right?
Yes.
And I would like to show the audience a video of you actually powering a truck, a diesel truck, I believe, with that. And can you explain a little bit what's going on in the video as it goes on?
Sure. Sure.
Thank you. And you guys, stay tuned. This is actually really cool. Here we go.
So what we've done here in this diesel truck was, when I was putting my fuel in there, I didn't have enough fuel to end up emptying out the whole gas tank and completely purging all the lines of regular diesel, right? So I had to actually put my fuel as close to directly into the engine as possible. So how we did that is we had to drain all the existing diesel out of the fuel filter system. In these diesel trucks, the fuel filter system is the last place the fuel goes before it's put it directly into the fuel injectors. So we emptied it out, and then we put in the plastic diesel purely in there. And what ended up happening was the fuel pump pumped in regular diesel, right, into that fuel filter. And then the pressure of that regular diesel being pushed my fuel directly into the fuel injectors. So for the first, let's say, 5 minutes the truck ran, it was running completely off of my fuel. And after that, it ended up becoming diluted out. But the point was that we did see that the engine did run. And interestingly enough, anecdotally, everybody around, when we did run the truck off of the diesel, the plastic diesel, as I call it, they said that for one, it felt completely the same to drive, and it sounded great. But also, interestingly enough, everybody said the exhaust smelled better than real diesel when real diesel was in there burning. And there is a science behind that, why they were saying that, and it does make sense. I'll explain that. So a part of plastic purification is desulfurization, meaning they remove the sulfur from plastic. Diesel has a sulfur content within it. But remember, so they remove the sulfur from plastic when they make it, right? If we turn that plastic into fuel, there's still not going to be any sulfur in that fuel. So sulfur is a known, molecule that can have quite an odor to it, but there was no sulfur in there. So when we burned that plastic diesel that had no sulfur, the exhaust is going to smell better because there's no sulfur dioxide or any sulfur emission at all in the exhaust. So that was why everybody was saying, oh, the exhaust actually smells better. And then on top of that, in the front of the truck where the plastic diesel was sitting, because it was getting hot in the engine, people were saying that, oh, the engine kind of had a more plasticky smell at the front. When you put diesel in the engine you're running, it has a diesel smell at the front, like a kind of warm diesel, and there was like a warm plastic smell at the front of the truck when we were running it, because plastics do have what in the chemical world we call aromatic compounds in them. and by the name of that aromatic, they have an aroma to them. So
Mm-hmm.
a part of the purification process of oils is what we call a deodorization process, and that is something that is more sophisticated. I wasn't able to do it at my house because, of course, ideally you wouldn't want your fuels to smell like plastic if you can remove it, and
Yeah.
you can remove it because actually in the crude oil refinement process they actually deodorize the crude oil, because if you smell raw crude oil versus gasoline, you would see it's a huge difference. So something that's really cool about these fuels we make from plastic is, since they are nearly chemically identical to the already existing fuels in this world, every single technology and process that we have to distill, refine, and filter and clean our current fuels, we can use on the plastic fuels.
Wow, and the part that I really thought was amazing, again, I want to congratulate you on every feat that you've been making, every pillar, every step, every brick that you've been laying to get closer and closer to the vision. And I just want to congratulate you, and I want to thank you for your work, Julian, because I know that it's going to be life changing and globally changing, environmentally changing for the population in the world. And just like I asked you earlier, how excited you were when you made Mach 1, right? How excited were you that day when you were able to drive behind this plastic diesel fueled truck, man?
When that process of getting that truck, going back to what we were talking about earlier about people only see the result. I had been working to get a diesel vehicle to test that fuel in for almost 2 years at that point.
Wow.
The
No one would let you
process.
use it? No one would let you use their car?
No, nobody let me use it. And in fact, the reason we were even able to get that truck is because there was an influencer from Florida. Her name was Rachel. And being an influencer, she did have just extra, I guess you could say, just the extra money to just, invest in this project. And she was like, I want to help you out. I want to get you this truck because I like what you're doing. And so she drove it up from Florida just to help, because everybody around me that had diesel vehicles, nobody came up and nobody wanted to bear, I guess, the risk of potentially, it not working. So it had been a 2-year process because, like I said, we make all three products: gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. But what happened was my Mark IV machine, about 3-4 months after making it, had an electrical fire that
Mm.
almost burned my parents' house. So they told me, and you can never run this at our house again. So
Wow.
when the fire happened, I only had enough diesel left to run a car, not enough gasoline left. Because I have a gasoline car, I would have gladly put it in my car day one. So then I had gone through the process of just trying to shop and find a diesel car on a limited budget for years and years, and then try to ask everybody I knew, like, who has diesels, and everybody I knew said, no, we're not going to let you test it on ours. So at that point, when we finally ran that truck, it was more of a relief than an excitement, because at that point we had already put the fuel into like a diesel go-kart engine, for example, and it
Okay.
ran. So I knew it was going to run. I was more nervous that it was just finally happening, and I was more of just relieved, like, finally we can get on to the next step. I can finally tell people, yes, we finally ran a truck, because up to that point people would always be like, okay, you ran a weed whacker, you ran a go-kart engine, can it actually run a car? And I was like, yeah, finally we can finally tell people, yes, we ran a car.
Yeah. Basically, like, there it is in your face. Ugh. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
Super cool. I have to address this because you mentioned, the biggest concern so far about making this pyrolysis is like explosion and blowing. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had to leave the Mach 3 because of some type of flammable issue, right?
Yeah, my Mark III reactor was built out of a 55-gallon drum, and those are made out of very thin sheet metal. And the process of pyrolysis doesn't operate under much pressure. However, with microwave pyrolysis, since it heats up so quick, in the beginning you have a big burst of pressure. And when you load in plastic, if you load in any plastic while it's running, or if you turn the blades while it's running, there's a burst of pressure. And Mark III, being made out of that really thin sheet metal, when I spun the blades for the first time, a burst of pressure happened and it literally exploded right in front of my face.
Wow. Did you experience any injuries or anything like that?
The only injury I experienced was a piece of molten plastic flew out and landed somehow on the bottom of my foot, and it ended up burning my foot pretty bad. But fortunately for that, You know, when it blew up, it blew the lid off, and the lid shot through my greenhouse and into a tree. But fortunately, I wasn't standing in the front because yes, that would have been bad.
Wow. No, thank goodness, thank God. Those things, those type of things make me believe in angels, and destiny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean seriously, because if I was standing in the front, everything would be so different. Because even if I was still here, I definitely might have had an arm taken off.
Wow. So, speaking of like the precautions, going back to the parents, and obviously you're seeing as you get bigger into the bigger devices, it requires more heat, which becomes more flammable, which could be more dangerous. So, what are your precautions to like preventing more explosions? What are you kind of working on to kind of protect yourself and anyone working with the next marks and stuff like that?
Well, Mark III blew up because it was too thin of metal. Mark IV, I made it out of literal propane tanks that are designed to withstand 200 psi 24/7. So Mark IV did not have that problem. My next machine, Mark 4.5, once again, I'm building it out of propane tanks. We're not going to have the issue of the explosions. But when it comes to the, fire risk, electrocution risk, those things do go up as you get more and more power going in. And the only way to truly protect yourself from those things is you have to be in a good state of mind when you're working on it. You can't be frustrated and trying to rush it or angry at it and trying to just force it. You have to be relaxed and you have to be always cautious and take your time with it. It's so important because, for example, the microwave power supplies, you touch them once when they're on, and that could be the end of your life right there. They make that much voltage, just one touch. And I've never been shocked by the power supplies themselves, but microwave power supplies also have what we call a capacitor in them, which is a form of storing energy or electricity short term. And those capacitors will store enough electricity to, they won't end your life, but they will hurt. And I've been shocked by those before. You feel the electricity travel from one arm to your other arm. It's crazy, right? So you really just have to be patient and move slow and be very perspicacious with everything you do, knowing, okay, if I, you know, have fuel shooting out, if I'm about to run this machine and I know there's going to be a ton of fuel shooting out, I need to make sure I have some place the fuel is going into that's fireproof. I need to make sure I have fire extinguishers. I need to make sure I have switches to turn it off immediately. You just have to think like that because when things get out of control, it's already too late.
Yeah, and then I guess it's probably good to have like a backup thing, like fire extinguishers around, some other things around to help protect in case it does happen, right?
Right.
And I like what you said because it's really about what's the saying, patience is a virtue, right?
Yes.
Because if you rush it, then that's how everything goes bad and everything. And there was a question that I had, and I totally lost my train of thought, but I'm going to move forward. And, like I mentioned earlier, like what the work that you're doing is amazing for helping the planet and all these things, getting plastic out. And obviously, we're in the month of March, and you've been going live on Instagram and all these other things for like every day, right? And all I hear people say is, aren't you scared of the government? Aren't you scared of this? Aren't you scared of that? Aren't you scared of this? And what I respect and commend you for, Julian Brown, is that people seem to be more scared of the powers that be than you are. And I respect that. And my question is for you is why, and are you a man of faith?
Why? Why am I not afraid? Well, and am I a man of faith? Yes, I absolutely. I'll say it like this: I am aware that the world we live in has vast amounts of evil, but I believe that with this amount of evil, there is good. There are forces that are on our side. I have the faith that there are forces that will help us, and as long as we believe in ourselves and we have faith that we will be okay. And being in fear is exactly what the evil forces want, because fear is delusional. Fear is you're taking something that you're taking a little small threat and making it 100x. You're making it way worse than it has to be. Fear will never accelerate anything you do. It will only take from what you do. And I tell people all the time that with this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. So if I'm going to do it, no matter what happens, then why do it in fear? Because if I'm in fear, it's not going to be done as good as it could be if I wasn't in fear. And I do have that faith in the Creator got me. The Creator got my back. The guardian angels got my back, because everything I'm doing is in good ethics, is in good morals, is in good intentions, and I truly believe that not necessarily if you do good, you deserve good, but I believe that if you work hard and walk in the right paths, that things will reciprocate that way back to you. So I believe that as long as I truly stay true to myself and to the mission, that ultimately, even if it comes off to us as just humans in the flesh, like something goes wrong, on the spiritual side, it's all a part of the plan.
I love that. Basically, it sounds a lot like what people call like the law of karma, a little bit, right? Put good in, good comes back to you, type of thing.
Right.
And I do believe that, in my opinion, Julian, that you are in your purpose and you're doing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it, right?
Exactly.
That's kind of how I do that, and I could say that. And on top of that, I wanted to ask you, how important is it to share this information of you creating pyrolysis through microwave technology in every step, through your social medias, your YouTube, and also writing your book? How important is this to share with the world?
It's so important. It's incredibly important, more than I can even emphasize. And the reason why it's important goes back to what we were saying before. The fact that the technology to turn the most polluting thing on our planet into fuel is something that people are just hearing about from me for the first time is a literal crime. It is clearly suppressed information, because I have already explained there are so many research papers. This is true science. And yet people are not being told it's even possible. People don't even know plastic comes from crude oil, let alone that you can turn anything organic into fuel. It is an absolute crime. It's not justice, it's injustice. So, ironically, this ties back into why I'm not scared. I am taking a very unorthodox approach to being an innovator. Most of the time, people want to gatekeep. People want to hold the patent to themselves. People want to keep it secret until they make their billions, and then they show everybody. I'm showing everybody how to make this as I'm making it. I'm writing the book it's going to have some blueprints in it while I'm still making my machine itself. I already have people in my live streams, in my emails, in my Discord communities that tell me they're building these machines. The best protection of this whole process is literally broadcasting it to the whole world, because we all know this is true science and we all know this is possible. And now all people need to know is that it's possible to do it without $1 million of lab equipment, without a Harvard degree. With all you need is a little bit of welding experience and safety precautions, a little bit of electrical experience, because that's all I had. You can do it yourself. I did it when I was 18. Imagine how many people are 60, how many people are in their 40s, 30s, 50s, 60s that have experience in so many fields of life. They're handy people. All they had to know is that it was possible, just like running the 4-minute mile. Once people knew that was possible, they're running the 3-minute mile. So now that people know that it's possible, it's going to get even better and even better. And no matter what happens to me, going back to what I was saying before, even if on the human flesh physical level, something happens to me and it looks like, oh no, something is not working with this process. On the spiritual level, it's all a part of the plan, because if something happens to me, next person's going to do it. Something happens to them, next person's going to do it. Eventually, it will be done by somebody, some entity, some corporation. This technology is now inevitable. It's already been shown to too many people at this point.
Amazing. And again, thank you for that, sharing, because, once the information's out, it's kind of like you can't control it. The fire in the wilderness, it's gone. You can't stop it. Information once it's gone.
Exactly. And once you see something, you never unsee it. And the fact that I already see people, I already know so many people that are building these, and I already know a few people who are building them and showing them online, like broadcasting it on YouTube, just like I have, and social media. It's too late to stop it now. no matter what happens to me, it will be out there because people, we all unanimously as humans agree, whether you're the Republican, Democrat, or no matter what your race, gender, sex is, we all agree there should not be plastics on our oceans like this. We all agree that's wrong. We all agree that's an eyesore. We all agree it's ugly. We all agree it's horrible for every living thing, including us. We all agree that we're getting microplastics in us and it's destroying babies and they're in fetuses and in our kidneys and our bodies. We all agree it is not right. It is injustice to not only our planet, but all of humanity and every living creature around on this planet. So with that unanimous agreement that this is not right, and now that people on a broad level, because I've had tens of millions of views, now that people know that there is a true solution to it, people will never forget that. And if something ever happens to me, it will only spark it even more because people are going to be like, okay, if they did something to him, now we definitely know he was onto something. Now we definitely know. So it's too late now.
Yeah. It's too late. It's too late. It's so awesome. And ever since I remember I came across you like maybe 3 years ago on accident. You're a lot younger. I think the locks were a lot shorter, but there's something that's been consistent with you from the beginning. Do you know what that is?
I would say my drive.
Yes, even something more physical, which is the dress. You've always put on a suit and dressed up, no matter what. And I always, it goes to in my perspective, and you can clarify this if it's wrong, people take you more serious when you dress for the occasion and you dress properly. So can you give us all a reason why you decided to always make sure that you show up with a button up, even if it's a suit or whatever with a jacket? Can you please explain why you decided to do stuff like that?
Absolutely. I call it a part of the Trillionaire's mindset. I've devised a club about this, Trillionaire's Club. We talk about all these things all the time. And the reason why you dress and you want to speak proper is because those are some of the first things that will immediately give you an edge and a boost on a socio-psychological level on anything you do. Because when you dress well, it's just, we don't know why. There are some archetypes in humanity, things that everybody around the world agrees that it just means something. When you see a suit, it means something to people. It oozes seriousness. It oozes a message. It oozes respect. More respect than if you don't have one on. And that's just an archetype. You go anywhere in the world, doesn't matter what their nationality is. Every businessman all around the world has a suit for a reason. So wearing a suit instantly boosts, let's say, your charisma by like 5 points. Just like that. And understanding that I am doing something that most people haven't heard about. People probably think it's fake. People see me and think I'm young. They're like, well, I am young, but they're going to be like, oh, he's young. He especially doesn't know what he's talking about. Wearing a suit immediately gives you even more of a boost in your message, for one. Because
credibility.
It gives you the credibility. Because even though, yes, what I'm doing is true science and such, I have to still sell the idea to people that don't know that. And if people come in and they see me and I'm just dressed like I'm homeless or something, they're more likely to just leave just because of what they see before even hearing what I have to say. The suit at least allows me to hold your attention for just 3 more seconds to at least hear my first sentence and hear my pitch to you. There's a reason why the door-to-door salesman always wears suits. There's a reason why every businessman in the world always wears suits.
Yeah.
There is a psychological reason. I don't know what it is about the suit. I don't know what it is about the geometry, some type of spiritual significance. I don't know what it is, but what we do know is that is what it is, and that's what the top 1% use. And as a trillionaire, your trillionaire's mindset, you are a top 1%. You use the same techniques they use, but the difference is you use it with proper ethics and morality, not to manipulate or exploit people.
Yeah, it's the professionalism. It just shows the seriousness, the dedication, and yeah, scammers and non-scammers alike both can wear a suit, which I love. And so, I just wanted to say I noticed it and I respect it because I always know, like, hey, when Julian, I was going to say Jab, when Julian shows up, he always shows up dressed for the success. He's never like in flip-flops, basketball jersey and everything like that. Oh man, I got a few more questions, but I don't think I have enough time for them. Dang it. Oh man.
Ah,
Anyway, let's keep it moving, and I'll try to pick the best one. So one of them would be like, what would you like the pipeline process to look like overall for this experiment? And if that makes the way I can explain it is, for example, from receiving plastic to like working with the company in order to get fuel to somebody else. Does that make sense?
yeah. So there would never be an issue with getting plastic. People will pay you to take their plastic away from them. I have some connections ready from people that collect plastic from the environment, the people that collect plastic from the ocean. We're going to get plastic from whatever. In fact, we probably will get paid to get plastic brought to us from some municipalities and companies. So that's one step. You got to get the plastic coming in. That won't be an issue at all. In fact, we could partner with the recycling programs of waste management companies and just have them take their recycled trucks that collect plastic already, people already pay for, to come bring it to us. All right. Put it in the machine, get the fuels out and the carbon and all that stuff out. Carbon can go to farmers after being processed and filtered properly, right? That won't be an issue on that side again because there's going to be a mutual relationship. Farmers have a ton of plastic waste when they get their bags of fertilizer, plastic. So they can bring that to us, and then on the other end, maybe we could give them fuel or something as currency, right? A little barter system going on.
Yep.
But then when it comes to the vast majority of oils, what we want to do is we actually want to take all these oils and sell them to already existing oil refineries. And why? For one, it's very difficult to sell your own oil. You know, you can't even sell your own moonshine or whiskey legally. You think they're going to let
Yeah.
you sell your own gasoline as a private? No. You
You'll
got to
get
have
locked up.
permits. Yes. But for two, we're here to step on nobody's toes. We're here to incorporate with everybody. We're here to have a synergy. People usually say I'm at risk because the oil companies are going to hate me. The oil companies are going to love me. I'm going to be their best friend because I'm going to give them even more oil to sell at their pumps. The difference is just comes from plastic. We're going to all incorporate and work together, and that's the goal.
Yeah. And there might even be a specialized company that might want to partner with you saying, hey, we just want to sell plastic diesel, as you call it, right? That might be a potential thing because like,
right. You know how you can go to your pump and you select the different buttons? They might have a whole button just for the fuel, just for the plastic fuel.
yeah, I remember now I was going to say earlier is that I think we talked about regular diesel had type of byproduct that smelled funny. I forgot what the term.
Sulfur.
Sulfur. So assumably that means that the plastic diesel is cleaner in its byproduct that comes out of the engine.
It does burn cleaner. It does burn cleaner.
Wow. You know, and what I was going to ask you was that, you know, how you also mentioned that you get gas that can go into propane gas as well, right? Is that correct?
Right.
So is there a possibility that you can be a full circle with your machine, which is like taking the crude oil and the gas and using that to provide the energy to support the microwaves?
Yes, you can. You just take the fuels and put it in a generator, and then the generator will run the machine because the machine actually extracts more energy from the plastic waste than the amount of energy required to run the machine. And it doesn't break the law of thermodynamics because we're not creating energy, we're just extracting energy from a very energy dense source. Just like crude oil pumps that pump the crude oil from the ground. They're not creating energy, they're extracting it from the ground. But obviously, if it took more energy to use the pumps to operate them to get the crude oil out of the ground, we wouldn't do that to begin with. But the crude oil is so energy dense that it justifies the 20 kilowatt hours to pump out 20 gallons of the stuff. And it's the same thing with the plastic.
Awesome. So you can be basically self-sufficient in making and supporting your machine and making it work the way it is, right? Like full circle.
Exactly.
So awesome. You know, I've seen you get a lot of interviews, a lot of questions, and so many things. And I want to thank you again for being on the Empire. What's something that you wish somebody would ask you, but they never ask you?
Oh, yes. What it actually truly takes to do this beyond just a skill set level. Like what type of lifestyle choices and mental and spiritual types of attributes it actually takes to truly be an innovator. Because a lot of people think that it's just this they just see the building or the welding or the electrical part, and they think anybody can build that. But there's so much more than that.
So do you want to share some of that with us a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There is a connection between mind, body, spirit. It's a balance, a trifecta, a trinity, and all three have to be in line. And you, when you build something, you are expressing your inner creative essence, right? But that inner creative essence is not fed by what you build. You building is a byproduct of it, right? So in order to feed that inner creative essence, you have to have all these other pillars in your life up to par, optimized. You have to be mentally, spiritually, and physically well. So you have to eat healthy. You have to exercise. You have to do whatever your spiritual practices, meditate, whatever you do, pray. You have to keep all of that up to par. You have to take care of your mental health. You have to be in a good mindset. You have to speak properly instead of saying, I can't do this. You never say, I can't. You always say, how can I do this better? All of these things have to be in line. For example, usually 90% of the days I run a mile. People may ask, what does running a mile have to do with building a reactor? A lot, because get your body in good shape. Your body's in good shape. You feel better. You feel better. Now you have more energy, mentally and physically. You eat healthy. You're not lethargic. Now you have more energy. You go meditate for a little bit. You pray for a little bit. Whatever you do, forest bathe, walk. Some people like to walk barefoot, ground themselves. Now you feel more calm. Your thoughts are calm. Now you can work on the machine better because now you don't have thoughts all over the place running through your head. Now you're not tired or lethargic because you ate healthy or you worked out and your body's in good shape. You're not getting as tired or worn out when you're working on it. You know, and that's the truth for people who will build this machine, because I know a lot of people will. They're gonna get into it, and of course, you watch it online. I cut up the clips, I speed it up, but people don't see on the back end or the underside how much true work and dedication it takes to make, even if you have the guides and the instructions right in your face, to make this at home is not a joke. And there's a lot of scary parts to the electricity, and there's a lot of just straight up hard parts on the actual building things by hand. You got to be physically in shape and stuff. So it's definitely a trifecta to build these things, and to be an innovator, especially because to be an innovator, then you have to have the mental and spiritual prowess to keep going, even when you failed. When I built my Mark III reactor, I worked so hard on it, day in, day out. I have the videos on my YouTube. Worked so hard for months just for it to blow up the first time I ever ran it, but I had to keep going. And how was I able to do that? Because I meditate and pray, because I run a mile every day, do push-ups every day, because I eat healthy, because I speak to myself properly, and I let myself know I'm not a failure, I'm just a postponed success. I let myself know that, and I speak the affirmations of myself to empower me, and that's the key. You have to have all of this in line.
Amen. And I definitely do agree. That's definitely requirements for innovators and creatives, is that you have to be the most, to use yourself most efficiently and effectively, you have to be in the right mindset, meaning aligned in the positivity, right? Because we can easily go down the negative rabbit hole, easily. But if we treat, it's interesting that you say that, because I have something in my book which I call "You Are the Holy Trinity," which means you have to have a healthy mind, a healthy body, and healthy spirit to be the most efficient person possible out here.
Yes.
And a line by Erykah Badu, which she's like, food for thought. So you even have to feed your mind proper things and feed your spirit. And what are those things, right? And like you said, in order to help your spirit and mind, you meditate. In order to help my body be healthy, I exercise, eat the right food. And so I think those things are crucial and critical.
Yes.
And, I just have a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind staying around.
Oh yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. And so, I wanted to get into the company's name, right? Nature Jab. All right. And for me, just my opinion, when I obviously right now the company is working on Pyrolysis, right? Which is dealing with that. But I see the company as being a bigger company in the future, dealing with environmentalism as a whole and probably in different aspects. So, can you tell me about, the idea behind the name of the brand and possibly the future of what you would like the brand to be, maybe like in 20 years or etc.?
Sure. So Jab are my initials, and it's a double entendre because not only is it my are there is that my initials, right? But it's a jab, a punch. By the logo, you see a leaf behind a fist. That means that nature, we hold nature, we respect nature, and we're gonna fight. We're the warriors for nature, and we're gonna make sure we protect nature because we respect nature to the point for all nature has done for us. So when these companies or whatever they are, entities, the evil in this world comes and tries to mess with our nature, they're not going to see the leaf, they're going to see the fist because we're ready to fight. We're warriors. So that's what nature jab means. And what the long-term implications are, well, with this technology in particularly, it is to get this all over the world, deal with plastic waste and waste as a whole at its source. Because in nature, there's no such thing as waste. Everything in nature is used in the same cycle, and we're going to do the same thing because this process, as I mentioned earlier, is not limited to plastic. It could be used on tires, it could be used on food, it could be used on clothes. We're going to tackle all of waste. And after that, sometimes people will always ask, well, what happens when there are no more plastics? What happens when there are no more tires? For one, that will never happen. In fact, by the time there's no more waste, that probably means there's no more humans either. But if that does somehow happen, then and there is somehow no more waste anywhere ever, then of course there's plenty of other avenues because we're here for nature. And right now, waste is one of the most important and I think the most urgent thing as humans we need to tackle that's threatening nature and disrespectful to nature. But I'm sure there will be something else that comes up. We will continue, Nature Jab will continue to innovate and find ways to deal with products that are very difficult to handle and to recycle. And that's the whole goal. So, think about it. Lithium ion batteries, that's probably going to be the next big thing. Solar panels and windmills, those are a huge thing. We have all these things we create and we don't know what to do with them. Perhaps in the future, Nature Jab will come up with a way how to get rid of lithium ion batteries, windmills, solar panels, and truly recover them.
Got you. So basically, I wasn't so far off on my hypothesis as far as far as the company dealing with more becoming an environmental company, basically a waste management company. If you think about it,
Yeah,
if that would be it,
right. A waste management company, and once again, we're here to work with everybody. We're not here to replace the already existing waste management companies. We're here to have a mutually beneficial relationship with every industry that already exists.
A partnership.
A partnership.
I love that. Justin or Julian, apologize. What is something that most people, even close friends and relatives, don't know about you? We got him, folks. We got him.
The first question I was ever stumped on. And that's tough to answer because, maybe before it might have been me working on this machine, but obviously I'm all over the internet now. They don't know about this. What is something they don't know about me?
Dun dun dun.
Oh, that's a tough one. I can't really think of something that comes to mind because I'm a very open person. I always let people know the tea. I'm all about the open source. And I'm all about showing what I do online, and they all of them know about my ambition and my drive. So honestly, I know there's something, of course, but it's just not coming to my mind. What is something that most people don't know about me?
And it could be simple, like how you ran a mile. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't know that, but now they're aware.
That's true. That's true.
You could be like, my favorite Pokemon's Charizard. Whatever you.
Okay. Think about it like that then. What's something most people don't know about me? I would say it's that. Oh yeah, here we go. I absolutely love gardening.
People know that. We know that. That's one of the reasons why you got into this.
Right. Okay. Oh, okay. Here's something people that there's a great one because it might be you might think it's the exact opposite because I'm all over social media, whatever, millions of views, whatever. I hate social media.
Got you. Is there? Can you explain why?
I think that social media. Okay, so I'll say it like this: social media is in itself a brilliant concept. The reason why people are all around the world are broadcasting and know this message is because of the internet and social media. Social media is one of those things. It's like, let's say, a weapon, right? Or a tool. A weapon is a tool.
Yes.
I can take a pitchfork and use it to bale up hay, or take a pitchfork, break into your house with it, and completely impale you. Social media, the way it's used in this society, is to, I think, to ultimately distract and destroy our minds and pollute us with a ton of just stupid content, right? But at the same time, I use it because I see it as a tool and I'm using it properly. But I believe that 90% of what's on social media should not exist and is actually destroying people's mind, and it's destroying their drive and ambition to do things. So despite me being such an avid user of social media and producer of social media, I think that consuming social media on a very broad scale with most content is actually very detrimental to most people.
Got you. Like
To everybody, actually.
Like watching the booty shaking videos and people arguing over nothing.
I truly believe that, the early 2000s may have been one of the best times when we were kind of in between a lot of technology and not too much. But I believe that we're going too far into technology right now. I really do. I think that we're about to run off the cliff because we are getting too consumed with technology and social media and things that are not even real. And I really believe that everybody on Earth would be a better version of themselves to this day if social media didn't exist.
Got you. Do you think we're going closer and closer to the world of WALL-E from the movie WALL-E?
No, because I'm doing something about that. But I do think we're going closer and closer to WALL-E when it comes to how the humans were just like completely emancipated just by technology. In terms of the trash stuff, no, we're gonna deal with that. But just being a complete blob,
yes,
your whole life is just stuck in a virtual world. Yeah, we see that every day. AI, and then the Apple Pro and the Oculus Rift and the Tesla brain chips. We're going there 5-10 years. And I know on the surface it seems so cool, so convenient. Oh my goodness, I can call my mom by just thinking I can call my mom. But I think there's a balance to everything, and we are going out of balance. We are losing humanity. Like, humanity's here, technology's here, and we are completely forsaking all of humanity for technology. And I think that long term, it's not going to be the best for us.
Gotcha. And I guess there might be a battle between technologists and naturalists, right? In the future, there might be like a little. We don't believe in this.
And you know what the ironic part is? Nature is the best technology in the world.
From the best creator.
Tell me if you can find one source of technology that can be the size of a little seed. You put it in the ground, it grows roots, it grows up as a tree, it sucks in carbon and grows leaves and can take the sunlight and become the size of a skyscraper in a few years. Not one piece of technology. So it doesn't have to be a polarity. We can incorporate both. But we can't just, because how in the world are we creating brain chips before we're dealing with our own natural environment that we polluted? We're becoming too imbalanced. We're forgetting about nature altogether. We're making it a polarity. We can have both because nature is technology. Nature is so advanced of technology that we call it primitive.
Very true. And when he's saying brain chips, it's not a certain type of food. It's called the Neuralink by Elon Musk, just to let you know, he's not talking about food. And, I 100% agree with you, Julian, because our ancestors were able to coexist with nature and live and grow. It's just only after, I guess they would say, modern times or during the Industrial Revolution when everything went to shit and hell, right?
Yeah, because like we're so focused on going on into different planets, into continuing to become robots and whatever, the Terminator, before we even fix our own pollution that we put on the planet. Why does it take somebody in his backyard that is 20 years old to push for something that should have already been all over the internet when they're billionaires that easily have the money. And instead, we're trying to do all these other things instead of fixing the problems we literally created. See what I'm saying? It's an irresponsibility, and that's why it's going to catch up to you. Because going back to what I was saying before, the reason why I know that this is safe, and the reason why I know this will happen is because everything I do is rooted in good intentions, good morality, good ethics. But right now, this technological push is rooted in just greed and trying to control everything and play God. And it's also not rooted in actually fixing our own problems and being responsible. Look at the way Native Americans lived. Native Americans lived, they respected nature so much, they would make sure that their environment was clean, that they didn't just leave things behind. And there's a lot of cultures that are like that. We are literally forsaking these basic human ethics that have been instilled within us, intrinsic since the beginning of time, because we have polluted and just completely disrespected our planet, and we're just leaving it that way and just acting like, oh, whatever, let's just go to Mars. Oh, whatever, let's just, like, you know what I'm saying? It's madness, and it's going to catch up to us because you cannot just do something like that and then just act like nothing happened, keep going and get away with it. It will catch up to you, and that's exactly why, because instead of just integrating with technology and nature, going slower, we're speeding up too quick with technology while leaving behind nature. And what's going to happen is we're going to hit a rock where we realize we can only build our technology with nature. And since we forgot about nature, we're going to be set back to day one because we're going to build all this technology, solar flare, boom, right back to square one. Oh no, we forgot how to live in nature. We forgot how to start a fire. Yeah. What are we going to do now? Just like that.
And I like to think that if we had like more celebrities saying like, you know what, hey, kids, people, let's not litter anymore. Let's recycle more. Like if we had Beyonce or just any celebrity say, hey, let's be kinder to our planet, to respect our planet some more. Just that little influence can do so much, in my opinion, if they just said something.
And you got to think too, before there might be something like, oh, okay, maybe they never seen this project or what's going on. But when you go viral on multiple platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you have people reposting your clips, big people reposting you on their story. These big people seen it. They know what's up, but they're not being a part of it. They have seen it, but they're choosing. It's not ignorance. It's not, oh, they don't know there's somebody out here doing this. They know, but they choose to continue to do whatever they do. Continue to just stay in the money side of things. And that's what I'm telling you, what the issue is. People for so long have had their roots in what they do, in greed and just the evils of this world, and not morality and goodness and ethics. And it will catch up to you it may take a long time, but it will come back every single time, and it's not going to be pretty.
Got you. So Julian, you're saying because, I think one of your videos, recent one, it wasn't even that big one. It had like at least 13,000 likes. So are you saying that people have seen your work, either maybe not the person directly, but maybe somebody that they know have seen your work, been told about it, but hasn't reached out to you?
Yeah, for sure. There's a few examples. Of course, I'm not gonna say anybody, but I know for an absolute fact just how the internet works. I have seen huge people in my comment sections don't reach out.
What did they say?
They're just commenting on the video like, oh, CIA is gonna get him or something, just playing into the memes or whatever, right? But what I'm trying to make is there is a huge push in our world for not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Bad is good, good is bad. And when it comes down to greed, people will always choose that. Most people, 90% of people will always choose that over doing what's right. And what I'm pushing is a new era, a new shift, a new paradigm. And not everybody's ready for this new paradigm where we're actually doing things based on justice and what's right and good morals and ethics instead of greed. But regardless of whatever they do, whatever they choose, that's their path. But I'm doing this. This is going to happen. This is inevitable. And that's just period on the case.
Yeah, and it's happening. And the people have been saying that we are in the age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment. So I think me and you, my brother, we are in the right place in the right time, looking for righteousness, making righteousness happen, and doing great things. And with that said, Julian, again, I want to thank you. What current projects are you working on right now? I believe you're working on the Mark 4.5, but are there any other projects that you're working on and what that may look like?
Now, Mark 4.5 is my only project right now because I'm fully dedicating myself to that because I want that machine. I want that to be one of the first machine. Well, it will be the first machine that I'll be running with my new audience because my audience has literally 100x'd. So I want to bring the people along for the journey. I want people to see it run. I want people to see it run live. I want to do collabs with like putting the fuel in race cars and jets and stuff. So Mark 4.5 is my full-time focus and job right now.
Awesome. And is there a ETA for it?
I give it about a month and a half.
Oh, wow. So basically by summertime, we should be having some fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, man, I look forward to it. Julian, I want to thank you for being on the Empire, man. Let's say 100 years pass by, 250 years pass by, half a millennia goes, right? What would you like your empire to look like, whether it's in gardening, pyrolysis, environmentalism, spirituality, family? What would you like your empire to look like half a millennia from today?
Look, there will always be different problems to solve, and I understand that, maybe they might even like give up this, maybe they might give up the pyrolysis technology to another company. As long as whatever they do is rooted in good morals, ethics, and what's right for all of humanity on Earth, that's all I care about. That is literally the goal of it all, because we're ushering in the next generation of world leaders, next generation of billionaires, trillionaires, and we are different. We are not here for greed alone and power. We are here to actually better humanity. So that's all I care about.
I love that. Very selfless, and I think that says a lot about your character. And so, Julian Brown, I want to thank you so much for being on the Empire, man. I want to thank you for sharing your beautiful story with us. Can you please tell everybody how they can find you, reach you, support the work? Can you please let everybody know those things?
Go into your address bar and search naturejab.info. Naturejab.info. And it will come up with my link tree with literally everything, every social media I have. If you want to support, you can donate. You want to consult with me, you can book me. Every single thing you need is right there, naturejab.info.
Nice. And I'll have his Instagram and I'll have his website in the link in the description. So that way, when you guys want to just like directly click on it, you guys can find him that way and follow him and support his work. You know what I mean? And I just want to thank him, and I want to thank all of you guys for being on. I think we learned so much about Julian, right? About how he just got sick of plastic, figured everything out on his own, decided to do it. He's not trying to take over the whole plastic fuel industry. He just wants to make the world a better place by getting rid of plastic and giving fuel back and energy, and that there's no byproduct. How he says that it's important to keep your mind, body, and spirit healthy and right in order to be a true innovator, creator. And I agree. And I hope you guys agree a lot. I think we learned a lot. Again, I want to thank him. I want to thank all you guys for being on. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Again, we're trying to build it up. Let's get this up, please. Like the video, share it, comment down below what you thought. If you want to support, all of our links are in the description. My name's Antonio D. Miles. And other than that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. All right? Peace.